And the friendship was there. It was, never knew him personally, never sort of grew up with him, but it was very much a case of it was a friendship which developed through being a musician.
Is there any sadness or hurt left in your heart after being tossed out for no reason?
No. I mean, if I turned around and said there was, then I'd be lying to myself. There comes a time in life, and I think this is where your beliefs are, where your strength is, your strength of character. And there comes a time, initially, I'll be quite honest, was anger, there was resentment. But there comes a time in life when you turn around and say, it's no good looking back over your shoulder all the time. Once you do that, you do tend to remain very, how can I turn around and say, bitter and twisted. And there's too much more to life to live, so when you realise that and you accept it, it's very much not about what happened, in the past, it's something about what happened, today and tomorrow, and that's what the future's all about.
You contributed memorabilia to the Sgt. Pepper cover. How did that come about?
Well, the medals, John was aware of the fact because when he used to stay, at the house, he knew that my grandfather had, military medals, and he'd seen them. And of course, when the Sgt. Pepper album came out, and they had the suits, and they wanted to acquire, military medals, he approached Mo, my mother, and of course my mother was very, becoming to them, and she turned around and said, yes, I'll lend you the medals for, the Sgt. Pepper album, but please, John, make sure that, you do return them to me, because as well as them being, my father's, there's a lot of sentiment to it, and, that's why she needed them back again. And they're still in the family, that's the good thing.
Do you think George was some sort of genius?
In his own way, yeah. It's a different genius. I mean, everyone turns around and says, Paul's a genius, John's a genius, or was a genius, George. So there's different levels of genius and different things which, they're genius about. And I think George's geniusness, if that's the word for it, was his outlook on life and what he did for people.
Did Neil Aspinall ever give you any messages or greetings from the Beatles over the years?
No. We don't talk business. I mean, let's be honest about it. Neil, we've been friends for many, many years. Rogue's his son. He's my stepbrother. We know our levels. Okay, we've been friends since before I was with the Beatles. Friends when I was with the Beatles. Been friends after the Beatles. But we know we don't mix business with pleasure. Family's family, business is business, and we respect one another for that.
At the moment you heard George passed away, how did you feel around that? And the same going for John when you found out about both of them?
Sadness. I think with George, because people were aware of his illness, the terminality of cancer, it was something which, when it did happen, it was like he was fighting it with all his strength. But in a way, it was like, okay, how long can you combat it? Are you going to get rid of it? It'll eventually catch up with you. It happened, most probably from my point of view, a lot sooner than people expected. But it was sadness. I mean, I knew the guy, friends with him, respected him for his musicianship, the laughs and jokes that we had in the past. But it was a deep loss, because of what happened, and he suffered and died at a very early age from, the horrible death of cancer. John's was totally different in as much as that no one expected anyone to walk up to John and shoot him on the steps of the Dakota building. And I think they're both tragedies, but the tragedies in two different lights. But as regards my own feelings about it, it was just total remorse and, deep tragedy and deep sadness on both accounts.
Is it true the sentimental things apply as time goes by?
I think sentimentality's always been a part of it. I mean, if you're not sentimental, to me anyway, I mean, I think sentiment is a great part of life. It shows human emotion, it shows sadness, it can show happiness. And I think if you grow up with that, then you're establishing yourself with the attributes, of what life can give you. And I think you should appreciate that, so, sentiment is an emotion, and I think you should make the most of it.
Will the Cash Bash Club go on after you've passed away? I mean, what are the future plans for the site? Sorry to think that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I'm the eldest brother in the family. Roger's the youngest, but I'm certain that when I'm no longer on the planet, it'll be handed down to members of my family. So there'll always going to be someone connected with the best family looking after it. That's the way I'd like to look at it anyway.
Now earlier we were talking, and Jeffrey Giuliano has written some things about you, an author, and I know you know him. Are there any thoughts on his work or anything?
It's like everything else, everyone either hates Jeff or they love him. They tend to fall into those two camps. I've
You've
met
had
Jeff.
personal experiences with him?
Yeah, he's interviewed me. We've discussed a couple of things in the past, and I know some of the things he's been very appreciative. And I suppose in a way he's fought my corner. He's turned around and said it was an unjust dismissal. Pete should have, benefited more from the legacy with the Beatles. But Jeffrey's Jeffrey, and he's his own man.
Why do you do these conventions?
It's availability, to be quite honest. I get asked to do numerous conventions, and if I can, I think it's great because being part of the Beatles and the legacy that the Beatles left, you can give back. Because there's different generations coming to the conventions. You've got the people who are the same age as ourselves. You've got third, fourth generation. You've got kids who are coming up who are Beatles orientated. And it's just nice, they take the time out to come and see you, and it's nice to be able to express and give a little bit of yourself and what you felt and the history and the stories that were involved with the Beatles. So it's enlightening for them, and at the end of the day, to hearing it from someone who actually was there as opposed to a copy person.
All right, 2 more questions. You do understand that all Beatles fans truly love and respect you as a loving and compassionate man, and how does that make you feel?
Very humble, to be quite honest. Very proud but very humble. It's one of those things. It's my nature. I'm very loving. I'm very tender. I'm a great family man, and I think I express that sentiment to fans. If fans take the time out to come and see you, whether it be with the band, whether it be at a solo performance, whether it be at a convention, then it's very much a case of they taking the time out, give them the respect and give them the time, and give something back to them, because at the end of the day, you wouldn't be that person without fans.
Did you ever have the chance to speak to John or George before they passed away? And if you didn't, what do you think we would have said?
Unfortunately, I never did. Our paths never crossed again, at least in a position where we could converse with one another, But I think if we had met, it wouldn't have been a case of, like a lot of people would have turned around or assumed, why was I dismissed from the Beatles? That is something which no one wants to open up that wound again. I don't want to talk about it anymore. So it'd be very much, like we're family men. We do have families. We've matured in life. We've gone around the world. So it'd be very much about today and tomorrow. I'd like to think that it'd be, talking about, family life. What they're doing, what the musical careers are, and just having fun, basically.
Just one thing for liability. Could you please say that I am Pete Best, and I know I'm being interviewed on a video camera. That's it.
Okay. I'm Pete Best, and I know I'm being interviewed on a video camera, which is over there.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.